Honestly, the sky is the limit. It gets a little bit challenging as you go bigger, but we're breaking that record right now. We've built a 100-foot long trampoline, and we're trying to break the world record. We're actually trying to find a partner to make a 200-foot long trampoline, and partner in a sense that we don't have space to set the thing up. So we can literally make the world's largest trampoline.
So very excited today. We have Luke and Armand on with us. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited. So Luke and Armand, they're managing partners of Crazy Ape Extreme Equipment. And a lot of our followers had followed Project Blow Your Mind, of which you guys, without you, we would have never completed the trampoline barn, which is an incredible setup and something our clients use all the time. And so, I think it's really important you kind of give a brief background of like who Crazy Ape Extreme Equipment is, really like the customer base, ideal customer, from commercial to residential, the specialty that you guys have.
No, for sure. Honestly, we do high end stuff. If someone wants custom, they just want something slightly different, that's us. And whether it's commercial or high end residential or pro athletes is a huge market for us. When someone has a young kid that's in gymnastics or snowboarding or skiing and they need a professional training tool, we do a ton of work with those audiences. So it's exciting. So, and Project Blow Your Mind was like a cherry on top. Like that was an amazing project to do.
So we still have to finish it. We still have the hyper bed going in for the big 14x14, but
yeah.
And so walk us through what that is. When you say, the final element there, what is it that you're going to be doing, Armand?
That is something we really kind of pioneered this year. We had a vision for it a little while ago, but it's the super performance trampolines that people have been putting in their houses more. They've been in backyards for a while, and especially training facilities. But there's a new way of doing that that's at the next level of performance, and that's part of the vision that we'd sold Justin on with Project AFT as part of that overall build. So we were just a little bit ahead of ourselves. We had to get a few extra components built out for it, and we're now finally just on the precipice of getting that done. The first one is rolling off, different size, but it's the process is dialed in.
So does this have to do with like what you'd see in like the Olympics for the trampoline, like more height as everyone's jumping?
More height control. A lot of people don't realize, like when you just jump on a trampoline, like we can make that soft and really deep, or we can make that tight and snappy. Like there's all kinds of things we can do with a trampoline. Like we engineer it down to specific springs in specific areas. It's not just a bunch of random springs around the whole thing. So this bed that Armand is discussing, it's a big square trampoline, and we actually hand weave every little string across this massive trampoline to give the utmost in performance. So we weren't quite happy with it yet for the barn build. So that's why we held off. We set a temporary one, and the epic one is coming. So
this is something that's completely proprietary that you guys have designed.
Yes. This is not like off a shelf. These are like everything is custom. Everything is one off. It's tailored, and that's all we do. So like you come to our factory, we got 10,000 square feet and several acres of yard space, and it's all raw materials. And an order comes in and it's like 48 hours later, it's shipping off fully custom. So that's what we do all day, every day.
See, the reason I want to speak about this is because, most of us who are listening are accustomed to right now, right? Holidays, Christmas time, kids want a trampoline. You go buy a generic one, you're setting it up, putting the springs on. I mean, any parent that's done this knows, the routine here. And, later, a lot of our clients have done like in-floor trampolines. And again, it may be a basic setup, and there's not a whole lot of thought to it. Walk through when you speak about the engineering and how you get clients excited. What is it? You mentioned that there's variations you can do depending on how you do the weaving and so forth. And so how are you factoring that communication with the client or the end user, or even through the contractor, builder, designer, architect, to really understand what the client wants and then how you can design around that?
It honestly starts with the discussion. Like we do click to buy on our website, but almost every one of our builds is a phone call with the customer, finding out what their actual needs are. Because once we know what their needs are, there's so many levers we can pull. It really overcomplicates the process for everyone involved. And it's so much easier for us to find out what they actually need as a solution. And then we tailor make it from there. And we'll run things by and say, hey, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want your padding to be seamless between all the trampolines? Or do you want just a trampoline here and a trampoline here, and you figure it out in between? It's really whatever the client wants. Like Project Blow Your Mind, specifically wanted continuous padding, and then wanted to be a little bit larger to cover the edge of the pit. Like all those little details, that was what the client wanted. So that's what the client got. So, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Armand.
I was going to say you first asked your first question. Luke started off saying if you want something slightly different, like we're your guys. I was going to say to build on that, it's if you want something that's tailored to you, that's something where we've really broken out in the industry, and why we've made I think manufacturing domestically makes sense. Is Luke will call it mass customization, but really it's all the different levers, all the different things we can do to tailor the product to your the end user's vision, what they want, how it bounces to how it looks, the sizing of it. We've had more than a few cases where someone's already had an in-ground hole dimensioned, whether it's for a previous trampoline or not, and we customize it down to the half inch to fit whatever they need. So
It's incredible. And I know specifically Project Blow Your Mind, just for reference, anyone that hasn't seen it that's listening, we have a large barn, air conditioned space, as you both know. There's a little half pipe skate park in there. But the trampoline itself, we have a large um, square rectangle trampoline. I mean, it's pretty big. And then we have two smaller ones. I say small, but it's really like a full size one, like the smaller ones, that they could play dunk ball. They have climbing ropes that they can climb up, to the peak of the trampoline barn. I believe we have like a balancing beam too, like a tightrope that they could walk across. And so all the different amenities, how exciting is it for you guys when you have a client that's really, willing to do something custom and, I don't want to say challenge your expertise, but at least, their goals align with what you both are passionate about.
Oh, it gets us going every single time. Like we do get some customers that are just like click to buy, and sure we like building those as well. But the best ones are the engaging ones where we have to really stretch what we normally do, and yeah, it just keeps it interesting. So,
that's what I live for. It's and Luke usually has to rein me in because I'm probably the more ADD one of the two of us. But if I get hyper focused on something, I just like pursuing it to the end of what I can do. Whether it's we did custom dog beds for a veterinary clinic, big padded things, and dialing all those into big trampoline full facilities like this, where you're thinking about how all the equipment flows together. And
if we can dig into that one, because this isn't just like so the dog bed example, in this to speak to the customization, they were having problems with the dogs getting sores because some of these dogs aren't healthy and they're getting sores. So it's like, well, hey, we actually made a real dog bed that's actually soft, that actually disperses the dog's weight. So it's like, it doesn't matter even what market it's in. We tailor all of this. So if you end up with a client that wants a dog washing station in their home, well, hey, why don't you have a bed in the corner for your dog to lay on? Like, and why doesn't it match the decor of your home? Like, so we do all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I never would have thought we would have got that phone call. And then we did. And now they're back ordering more because they liked them so much. So yeah.
So I have to understand this because maybe this is like, from my perspective, if I'm looking at creating a dog bed, I would never think to call Crazy Ape Extreme Equipment, right? Trampoline. Like what's the connection? I mean, what did you ask them how that call initiated? I mean, what makes them think that you guys would be willing to step out of something that's completely out of the norm, if you will, to do something such as this?
I guess it's sort of the short answer is we do all of our own equipment for all our own facilities, and we've just always learned to build stuff. So we've had a thing on our website for just custom pads, and that's where they reached out to us for. It wasn't very descriptive. It was just some pictures of different examples of things we've done, and they needed specifically larger, thicker beds for big, like 150-pound dogs that are coming post surgery to recover on, and that they just needed to reach out to someone that could make that domestically.
Yeah, like we're doing Ninja Warrior courses. We're doing rock climbing gyms, both commercial, for schools, for homes. There's just so many various regions that we do, and a lot of it boils down to large format sewing. We had people reach out to us for covers for custom vehicles that are going to unveiled, like all kinds of stuff. But where we tried to focus is any padding or trampolines or Ninja Warrior courses, and yeah,
it spoke to like whatever we can do within our abilities as large format, textile manufacturers, and how we can tailor a solution for a client.
So you mentioned your own facilities. Speak about that a little bit more. I know that, some who are watching this, on YouTube will be able to see behind you, but in general, speak to where you're at filming this right now and what those facilities entail.
Yeah, so we're a fully vertically integrated commercial enterprise. So we have indoor trampoline parks and kids facilities, as well as Crazy Ape, the manufacturing arm. So right now we're in our head office, which is overlooking our one facility. And that's adjacent to our manufacturing building. It's only 5-10 minutes away. And yeah, we've got a We got commercial facilities here in Regina, Saskatchewan, up in Canada. We've got one in Saskatoon. We've got one out in the mountains in British Columbia, and we've actually got partnerships with two down in Florida as well. And those all are ones that we're owning. And then we actually build them commercial facilities all over the United States. So like we've sent a few down to Arizona. We got another one going to West Virginia today. So we're kind of doing these commercial facilities all over the place.
And so it sounds like, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, we have a lot of trampoline parks in Arizona. Again, these are very popular throughout the U.S. for a lot of reasons: birthday parties, events. I mean, our kids love these places, right? And especially you mentioned Canada. In the winters, it's tough. Here for me, the summers are tough, and so it's a good indoor place where people can exercise and have at it, if you will. For the ones that it sounds like you have the manufacturing arms, so you're supplying trampoline parks throughout the U.S. And then internally, are you keeping these businesses yourself and operating them and handling, the day-to-day entries and the weekend parties and everything that goes along with it?
Yeah, for some of them we are, and it's a lot to manage. I have to say, sometimes
Totally different business model.
Oh, it's totally, yeah, like over 100 employees, and yeah, it definitely keeps us on our toes. So it's nice doing some of the big builds where we just ship them to other people because we close the door on the semi and it's gone. Versus flying out for the grand opening, flying out for training, and like we had to go back to the mountains this winter to do a renovation on our facility out there. It's quite involved, but we're at the same time we're getting further into it because we keep getting phone calls for these trampoline rooms as they're getting called. And I think these places are popular. Like trampoline parks do well. People want to go there with their families. They want to go there for birthday parties, like you were saying, but they get so busy. And I think that's part of the reason people are starting to say, well, hey, I want one of these in my home. So, and it's an option.
The pandemic really changed things. So that's where really everyone wanted a bigger, better backyard, or better yet, have it in a barn or in your house. So people wanted to bring these facilities, right home. So,
well, and that's kind of where we got into this as well. Like we had parks and we had the manufacturing, which let us build our own parks, and that was our bread and butter. And then the pandemic hit, and we had to shut down all of our parks that we owned and operated, and we had to lay off over 100 people overnight. And
Canada was brutal. It was brutal for you guys.
Yeah, it was crazy. So here's the business that makes their money, that pays their salaries, and like I got a wife and kid at home, takes care of all that, and all of a sudden that was just gone. And we got this little mom and pop business, what it used to be, that built these backyard trampolines and let us build our own internal facilities. And suddenly we just poured all of our time into that. And pretty soon Best Buy was calling us, Walmart was calling us. No one could get trampolines, and all these big box stores are trying to buy from us. So, and
we didn't sell through those places.
No, we didn't take their calls. We focused on just doing what we do, which is a really high quality product, and it's honestly taken off ever since.
That's where we rebranded as Crazy Ape. We were Canada Trampoline before that, and kind of just generic kind of no-name brand, and we rebranded, redeveloped all of our product lines, and started really diving into we do crash pads and things like that too. But,
yeah.
So I want to touch on this business element because it's so different than in manufacturing. Down here, I know some investment groups that have done trampoline parks here. They're close friends of mine, and in fact, a couple of colleagues of mine have been investors in it, not just with the investment group, and they've done very well. I mean, they're very successful operations. They've done really well. To your point, there's a lot of staffing. From a business aspect, which I think is really caters to the audience that listens to this. How, for both of you to set up a business that's in manufacturing and operations and shipping and freight and, install, as opposed to operating, the trampoline park. I mean, these are completely different. I mean, how did you both figure out, cost and investment? When you're building a trampoline park, there's investment for the structure, there's investment for the TI, right? The tenant improvement, and to get it all built out. And then, there's a lot of costs involved. So walk through, you're both very young. So that business mindset.
Well, it's tough. We have an advisory board. So we've got some senior advisors that help us just as young entrepreneurs. And they're like big property holders. There's a restaurant magnate. There's like my father-in-law is one of our advisors. He runs a big consulting firm. So they've been advisors and guides for us as young entrepreneurs. But it's really just been figuring out one problem at a time. Like people say no, or they say, hey, we'll consider it, but you got to do this. And it's like, okay, we'll go do that. So, It's been just one challenge at a time. And like the manufacturing was our opportunity to get into the facilities because, of course, these places are really expensive to build. But when you
Mm-hmm.
start small and build it on your own, like first one is Boomers. That was in Regina.
Yeah.
That one was 12,000 square feet.
Yeah, very
And
small.
Saskatoon, 16,500 square feet.
And then
Then
we went
Vancouver,
big, yeah.
50,000 square feet. That one was a little
Right.
crazy. So that was like Disneyland, but in Canada kind of thing. So, yeah.
The painful lesson with that, we learned a few hard lessons with that one.
Like what?
Oh, man. Well, the ceiling, it was $50,000 to spray the ceiling white. And then all the air conditioning and all this. And we spent several $1,000,000 building this epic facility, the best in the world. We actually had leaders in our industry flying from as far away as Australia to see that facility. And then the pandemic hit. And we never really thought to pull money out. We just put money in.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, long story short, the lease didn't pan out during the pandemic, and we ended up packing it all up and loading the equipment into 7 shipping containers worth pennies in the dollar. So
Wow.
that was a painful one.
The benefit was that we had designed the entire park to be modular. We had foreseen this. The trampoline parks are really in an evolutionary phase at that point in time where rooms full of trampolines on their own were getting boring. And
Mhm.
people were starting to bring other features in like ninja courses and climbing, exciting climbing walls in arcades. So
Foam pits and other
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
and then the comp, we always called it the comp zone, but like with the high performance tramps, we always were big proponents of that. And so we designed this whole place in phases with the idea that we could pop a feature out, put something else in, and by necessity that forced us to make everything very modular. So when we took everything back, we were actually able to repurpose it. So we've built that into our new park in Regina here, actually, finally, which was nice. Kind of like the phoenix of came out of the ashes of that whole pandemic debacle. So
When like there were some cutting edge attractions we built in that facility too. Like I don't know if you've seen Red Bull does an event where they do rock climbing over a pool. So you no
Mhm.
harness, no nothing. You just climb as high and as fast as you can. It's a race to the top, and if you slip, you fall into water.
Mhm.
We love that concept. So we did that with an airbag below. So we had all these crazy rock climbing walls and no harnesses. The kids just go out there and have fun. And that's the sentiment we've tried to carry with all of our equipment. So when you go to any of our facilities or pretty much anything crazy it makes, there's nothing to stop a kid. Like the kids need to be, I guess, that excitement that they have when they walk into our facilities. I don't think it should be restrained. It should be guided. And so we do skill testing barriers. So, for example, we have an 8-foot platform in the back where the kids jump off into an airbag, and there's a really steep incline. And if the kids can't climb up that incline on their own, sorry, bud, you're not old enough to climb up the incline and jump off the edge. Realistically, it's a fall hazard. But there's some kids that are crazy athletes, even 6-year-old kids. So
Yeah.
why stop that 6-year-old kid from going to have a good time? So it's worked really well for us with these skill testing barriers and getting away from limiting things like fall restraints and things like that that aren't fun. So
bubble soccer is about the only thing where we actually strap a kid into a bubble. Just like, but that's about it. And that's
And
actually been really
that
fun.
one's tightly monitored too, just because you get the kids that aren't in a bubble and the kids that are in the bubble, and
Oh yeah. See ya.
not good. Size wins.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, the
But-
bubbles and amplifier. I found out that they're wrong. The first time we ever had them back in 2014 or 15, right before we opened our first Apex location, Luke came around the corner and I came around the corner and he had a bubble and I lost. So
Yeah. And then we put the rule in. Yeah. No bubble soccer unless you're, both in a bubble. So,
Yeah, that could be a painful learning experience getting hit without a bubble. So.
at least the floor was very soft. Well,
Yeah.
that was what we used to do. We tried it on trampolines and we quickly realized that was no bueno.
Yeah.
But because you're in a bubble, you're all kind of disoriented and you can't tell where the jumping surface is versus the pads, and it's not good. So we quickly realized these air track airfloor systems, they're phenomenal for that because they're all a continuous system. They're all bouncy and soft. You can drop a knee anywhere. You can fall over, and it's just the floor is bouncy.
So
You're in a bouncy.
basically, it's an air mattress. The entire floor is an air mattress with trampoline walls, and it's padded and a little fun arena. So,
and those have been a mainstay in our facilities now too. So they're a fun thing. And honestly, I would really recommend that for people doing these home builds. It's such a versatile system. Like it's really fun. You can use it as a volleyball court, a dodgeball court, but it's all just free, open, bouncy, and you got trampoline walls and.
well, and so I guess where you're coming from, like we kind of see it in the commercial world. We see all these wild, crazy attractions. When someone's got a budget of $5 to $10 million to build an indoor park. They want the cutting edge, the latest and the greatest. And now we're starting to see those same things a few years later going into people's homes. And they see it in these parks and they go, hey, why can't I have that in my basement? Or why can't I have that in a barn in my backyard? So we're doing these constantly. We keep getting phone calls. A lot of them, like Utah's a popular place. Some down in California. They seem to be all over the place. Florida's been big now too. So so that's the one we see coming is these sports courts, the recreational courts where just everything's soft, everything's fun. You can throw a football. That was one of the best moments I have. Like pictures in my mind is throwing a football to a buddy. He's diving, catching it, landing on his shoulder, and rolling out because the floor is over a foot thick. So it's there's a lot of cool stuff we can do. So
I think the modular concept is fascinating because, I I have 6 kids. I've probably had 6 birthday parties at the trampoline park here. So I'm well versed in, as you mentioned, they have the high performance trampoline. They have like a zip line. They have, like a dodgeball area where it's all pads and it's almost like a skate park where you're running up and throwing them. They're like half wall trampolines on this skate park, right? And they have the basketball area and the foam pits and jousting and all that stuff. So I mean, there's just there's so much versatility, and the kids just go play and they're so sweaty for hours, out there worn out, which is great for us as parents. But from a budget perspective, it's interesting because seeing the commercial aspect, sky's the limit, right? And there is definitely a good ROI if you're going to invest in these as a commercial place. I mean, this is very active. They're very popular, at least in Arizona. I mean, it seems to be sold out every time I'm there. There's a lot of kids there. What should a client budget when they're looking at this for their personal home? And again, I know it can vary depending on if they want to do a Ninja Warrior course, if they're doing a trampoline park per se. But maybe high, low, like, a range. If someone's looking at doing something and maybe they just want some in-ground trampolines, and you guys excel in that as well. I mean, what can a client expect budget-wise?
it is really hard to say. The best example I give you is if you're building a trampoline in the ground, your construction is going to cost more than the trampoline. Like you're probably going to be 10, 15, 20 grand to do the whole, the concrete and everything like that. Your
masonry walls,
easily under that for the trampoline. Standalone trampoline, they start as low as 2,500 and they go up to about 10 grand for a really good standalone trampoline. We get super fancy stuff like we do at the barn. But yeah, individual trampoline, anywhere from 2,500 up to 10 grand. So
we brought back a very basic version of our current offering, just as a durable standalone backyard trampoline. But really where it starts is you're about 5 grand if you want something that's dialed in, tailored for yourself. And if that's in ground or custom pads, basically commercial spec for your home, which is on the spectrum of what we put into the barn.
And these all have adapters to actually go to a wall. Like this isn't like an off the shelf trampoline. So it's tailor made. And the company we bought, the manufacturer we bought 12 years ago now, has a legacy of building trampolines for over 40 years in Saskatchewan, up in Canada, where we're from. And a lot of those trampolines are still out there. So these trampolines are so well built, so rigid, they stand the test of time. I honestly call it like the old Volkswagen Beetles. Like you still see driving around, and they were still making them up until recently down in Mexico. Well, it's kind of like how we build our trampolines. We still build them the same ways, same materials, and you just service them. You don't need to replace them, which when you're making a big investment in your home is often a good choice. So
and from the custom side, I think what's interesting is maybe you speak to this. Some may, I don't want to say be hesitant, but as they're building the openings in the ground, right, for the in-floor trampoline, does it have to hit a certain length and width? How custom can it be? Can it be odd shapes? I mean, how custom can they get working with you guys on, depending on the space they have available?
Yeah, so we just worked with an influencer a few weeks ago and make a triangular trampoline.
Wow.
So it's like whatever you want. Like we had another client, a major park builder, wanted to do a tether ball, and they were like a diamond shape. So 2 diamond shaped trampolines with a tether ball pole in the middle. So we did,
That was a V1. Now it's more of like some kind of weird pentagon shape, but it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think we've done 4 of those for them now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's honestly the sky is the limit. It gets a little bit challenging as you go bigger, but we're breaking that record right now. We've built a 100-foot long trampoline, and we're trying to break the world record. We're actually trying to find a partner to make a 200-foot long trampoline, and partner in a sense that we don't have space to set the thing up. So yeah. We can literally make the world's largest trampoline. So
That's incredible. So as far as, width and length, I mean, there is a limitation depending on how big it is, but for the most part, it doesn't have to be like a 10 by 15 or something. It could be, random sizes and you guys can cater to that.
yeah, I know exactly. Even the barn job was the two rectangular trampolines were actually Olympic style trampolines, but they're a little
Uh-huh.
bit smaller just to fit the site
Yep.
conditions of the building. And then because he wanted the big rectangle or the big square trampoline, which is more off axis, and that's the one the rope is below. So it gives a good landing area for the kids to fall on. So all of those were tailor made in little bits and pieces as needed for the client's needs. So
You mentioned that something that's been really popular, and maybe this is commercial, residential tramp rooms. Walk us through, what a trampoline room is.
oh, so the
What comes to mind when you think of a trampoline room?
Well, I know what Project Blow Your Mind has in our
yeah.
trampoline barn, but a tramp room itself.
I'd like to say that the ceiling's the limit in that case, but whatever you kind of create in that space, like padded walls are nice in certain applications, but you can do trampolines, you can do slack lines, battle beams. We can do obstacle blocks as well between grids of trampolines. Yeah, honestly, even when we recommended that the sport court with the trampoline walls, a little sports arena, that'd be an excellent contender. We can do truss over certain areas too to suspend different things like ropes and different rings and things like that from as well. So it's
And these can be big or small. Like
yeah,
one that Armand tailor made for a guy, was it the Yukon?
somewhere up in the Arctic. Yeah,
Way up north. He had a gym and he wanted a trampoline, but of course he had a more modest home. It was 9 foot ceilings and things like that, and it really constrains us. So we ended up building a mini rebounder, one of those little fitness trampolines, stretched the size a little bit, gave them really good springs, and you can actually bounce on your back on the thing and keep. We call it wall running. Land on your back and keep bouncing. Like it
Hmm.
performs like a wicked high performance trampoline, but it caters and works in a 9 foot ceiling environment. So trampoline rooms can be a conventional room, and we can do that as a multi trampoline assembly, or it can be something as extravagant as the barn.
yeah. We still use like piano wire springs. We just used a smaller one. We downsized the pads, and we did what we could because it ended up being like a 5.5 foot by 7.5 foot trampoline,
Hmm.
pretty small, but um,
And so, speaking of the custom, like that mini trampoline is actually something we specially designed before the client had called us for children with autism and sensory deficiencies. So we can tailor the bounce and eliminate noise and all kinds of stuff to meet clients' needs. So
that's actually what kicked off the different colors and different types of textures and materials, just for kids with different sensory needs and things like that. And so we've done some pads and different because just they don't like the vinyl feel; they wanted something softer. We've done some interesting pads you crawl through too that give them more of a kind of a hugged and closed feeling, and it's
yeah, some of the kids want a kinesthetic response. So if a kid's having a meltdown, sometimes the best thing you do is give them a hug. Well, it's how do you simulate that with equipment? Well, you build
Hmm.
padded walls around the trampoline that double as a containment so the child doesn't fall off. And when they climb through, they get that kinesthetic response of it rubbing against the back of their body. So it's the challenges, honestly, are the best place to start because we find out what someone's challenges are and how we can help. And we have the solution most likely figured
noise
out.
noise too. We found a couple different solutions that can eliminate the noise that trampolines produce, whether it's the pads flapping when you're jumping or the springs squeaking. So
Hmm. It's fascinating the thought behind this, and I've been fortunate. I've grown up around trampoline my entire life. My mom was a gymnast, so as
Nice.
a kid, I did gymnastics as a kid, and we lived on a trampoline, had slumber parties on trampolines. Like, this is like it was like a staple in our home for many years. In fact, the trampoline we had growing up is at my brother's house now. But you mentioned that with this client in the Yukon, that 9 foot ceiling. I mean, no one would ever think that they're putting a trampoline in a 9 foot ceiling, right? But to your point, there is a sensory side, there's an exercise side, right? I know from playing on the trampoline, like there's a lot of work. My kids will ask me to jump them, and I go to the gym fairly often, doing I don't skip leg day. And, if I'm bouncing three of my kids on the trampoline after about a minute, I think my legs are shot. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, it's because of all the force, that they're taking when I'm trying to bounce them pretty high. Um, but you mentioned bouncing on your back. Like, we do that as a kid to see how long you could go, right? Going on your
Yep.
back. And so did the client do that just for like an exercise thing? Or, what was his strategy doing a smart trampoline where he could just bounce on his back and keep it in that 9 foot, ceiling height?
He just wanted a trampoline, and I felt like it's so small, and he's paying like $5,000 for this thing. I have to make it so he can also do this because it'd be so much more rewarding and fun. So my goal was to actually make it big enough that and responsive enough that it would be capable of doing that. So
This is something we love. And even like when we come to our facilities just to have fun with some of our staff, after hours, everyone's doing this thing called wall running, which is something Cirque du Soleil made famous. It's been in a few acrobatic acts as well. And you may be familiar with it as a gymnast where you fall on your back and there's a wall and you pretend to walk up the wall.
Right,
There's a
right.
platform or a window. You hop into the window. You do flips off the wall. It's what we love to do. So that's often our test is if you can wall run on it because you can't wall run unless you have a good trampoline.
it's more accessible to us non-gymnasts.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen many videos, on TikTok and Instagram, like reels out there of them, doing that. They'll fall down on their back and then bounce up to the stairs, or maybe they're walking up like a staircase, and each step they go down and come back up higher,
Yep.
and so forth.
Exactly. So,
And we noticed it's a lot safer too because you're not chasing another flip or rotation or something like that. There's a lot more kind of fun things you can do off the wall and that leave the user inherently more safe.
So being that you're doing your own R&D, right? You're out there, you're testing the stuff you're playing. What's the injury count look like at the company?
actually, very low. We've been very lucky.
Yeah,
That's good.
especially the new facility. We've again we're still kind of considered a trampoline park locally, but we've probably got about 30% or 35% of the equipment is trampoline based. The rest of it is. We've got the ninja courses, we've got the challenge beams, the battle beam, slack beam, the log roll, ninja course, silks. We got a little rope swing course, and just the way we designed the flow of the facility, I don't know. We've noticed a dramatic reduction here. So it's been
So we're not your typical operators either. Like we actually won an award down in Florida. It was a global award for leadership in the industry and in promoting optimal safety. I sat on the board for the International Association of Trampoline Parks for 4 years, actually promoting safety in the industry. I'm now the chair of an amusement division that actually trains the technical inspectors. So as we're finding the need for regulation and more regulators are coming in from the state to the provinces and they're regulating these facilities, they're actually coming to us for the training. So Armand and I hosted the training program a few years back for our local government, actually flew down for it. So yeah, we've tried to do, I don't know, and maybe this is just part of, I like to think it's partly just because we're young. We're not all about the money. We're about the experience and just doing these epic things. So a lot of our equipment's crazy. Like, to be honest, the trampoline we have set up in the compound at our manufacturing is the bounciest trampoline in the world. It's absolutely insane.
As a single user, where you're inputting your own, it's just incredibly efficient. So what you put in, you get almost 100% back out. So you can just put additional energy into getting higher and staying higher, and it's pretty effortless. In contrast to some of the really big ones you see out there, where you've got 3 or 4 people like trying to double bounce,
right,
on flying. But
this one you bounce a little bit and you're afraid. Like I would honestly compare it to a Bugatti. Like it's absolutely nuts. Like, but so we had an open house and our staff were jumping on this and their families were jumping on this. And we're fairly tight on the rules with that one specifically. It's like, hey, one at a time. But yeah, it's all worked out. So
we also, like, our first parks were in our back, like literally in our backyards. And, we wanted to build a reputation locally as being good operators and good young entrepreneurs. So we always had a strong focus on safety. And we actually engaged, this is a cool thing. We engaged a really unique guy out of the mountains. He's, how would you want to describe John?
Well,
and he's put on a bunch of safety seminars at these conferences. Then we brought him out for a number of years. And he's one of the best attended events.
We actually have, he's a risk management professional. He's an adventure law professor. He did the safety manual for the Golden Gate Bridge for the maintenance. Worked at Petzl, and he's the type of guy where if I call him, he'll be climbing a mountain somewhere, and not Everest. If Everest is too popular and touristy, like he'll go to a mountain beside Everest. Like it's just,
he did the Matterhorn 2 years ago, I think. So
wow.
Yeah. So he does a lot of our risk management and our signage and our training review, and even our for the Crazy Ape for all of our products and our labels, he does all our review. So
we found him because we were like, well, who can we engage? Like, who would be an expert in this area of the industry for signage and in just safety audits and things like that in your facilities? You reached out to Ski Hills and asked them who they used, right? That's how I think they pointed us to him.
So
it was pretty cool. And then we designed a whole challenge based thing around the skiing terminology, whether it's like blue circle, green square, black diamond. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
categorized attractions in that respect, and then listed what the challenge points are.
Well, and that's now being used as an ASTM standard for the parks like this as a baseline. It's just like the ski industry. I don't know. You kind of got a tangent. I get especially nerdy when it comes to safety and all the standards we're working on, and yeah.
Well,
But
you have to. I mean, it's very high risk what you do and what you're supplying. I mean, it's definitely something that hearing this probably brings a lot of comfort to maybe people that have considered, trampolines or maybe Ninja Warrior courses because, safety is always first and foremost, especially with kids.
yeah,
And so knowing that you're passionate about that and that you have a rating system similar to, you go to rock climbing gym, they're going to rate each of the climbs depending on challenge, right? So, they're going to rate, as you mentioned, skiing is a good example, or, trampolines. So there's a level of expertise or difficulty that, you can tread with caution or at least be a little bit more careful.
yeah. Well, and specifically with home building, this is where I see the things evolving. The building inspectors are going to start asking more questions, and we're already starting to see it. Like we've shipped some project to the States, and they've gone, "What's the flame spec on this material? Is this
Mm-hmm.
daylight
Mm-hmm.
free? Does this have lead in it?" Like we're
Mm-hmm.
starting. We just did a daycare in New York,
Yeah.
in Grand Central Park, a big daycare, and they start asking all these questions. So that's one of the things we've been able to nerd out a little bit more on and dig into. A lot of our material is actually being made in North America. We've started to get away from the offshore materials because they'll send you a spec sheet, but can you trust it? Versus
Mm-hmm.
a North American textile mill where we've actually walked the factory floor, we've shook the hands of the engineers, we've inspected the materials ourselves, and they're getting test sheets from domestic labs proving there's no lead in the material, which is a common issue overseas. So I don't know, I see more and more of that coming to light in the near future. Even these big commercial parks were unregulated. In many states, they still are. So as that starts clamping down, I see building inspectors asking more questions in homes. So things like falls, like so if your trampoline's 3 feet off the ground and you build that into a house, and well, now is the building inspector going to want a railing around it? Well, hey, if you put a railing on it, now how are you going to pad it? Well, if you pad it, well, now it's too big to be considered a handrail. Like there's all different kinds of questions that can come up. We see it more when we're doing a facility like Round One down in the States or things like that. But I see that evolving into some of these homes in the future too. So
That's where it's nice that this has all been contemplated in the standards, the ASTM standards that we build the parks to. So
yeah, lets us point to them, and building inspector says, "Hey, why isn't that railing padded?" It's like, well, we're following this ASTM standard for rock climbing gyms or trampoline courts, and that's why. So yeah.
What do you find, for customer acquisition? What does that look like?
it's changed so much in the last year or two.
Yeah,
In the now that we've started moving into higher end luxury builds, being part of trampoline rooms in fantastic projects such as AFT, we've found that it's been the designers, or well, in the case of Project Blow Your Mind, Justin, the owner, I found us independently somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, we found a lot of headway in reaching out to landscapers and designers and architects, and just showing what we can do. And we're there to be their partner. We're not some off the shelf product. We're people behind a phone that we can actually help support things and do service and tailor it to their customs needs to meet their vision.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it does pivot like any business, in fairness. I mean, when you guys are starting out your business, the ideal client may be X and now it's Y. How do you track, speaking about customer acquisition, but ideal client, what does the ideal project look like for you guys? I mean, if you're looking, whether it be um, demographic, whether it be age, whether it be, their, their vision alignment with and your company goals, what does that ideal client look like?
I
we're seeing active families. It is definitely where it boils down to. We do see some blue collar families that are looking for custom trampolines. The majority of them are for custom build, whether it's a doctor in Calgary that wants to put a trampoline in his backyard in the ground. And it's really boiling down to active families. And speaking of that change, like 6 years ago, pre-pandemic, 100% of our retail sales actually went to dealers, and dealers sold on our behalf.
Hmm.
Everything was cookie cutter. Everything was loaded into a semi, like a full semi load of trampolines, and shipped off. Now that's zero. we've literally pivoted 100% where all of our sales are tailored and bespoke and what we call mass customization, where every order is custom made for the client. And we'll sell through people still, whether it's a contractor or architect or whatever is needed. But every order is tailor made for the client. So,
yeah, and I would say some of the best clients are those who are creative and passionate themselves about the project. And this is some special part of that project. It's not just a random, you know, kiddie thing tossed in the backyard.
It's an extension of them, or it's this critical piece for their family, or and those are the really fun ones to be involved with.
Absolutely.
So,
what do you find to be the most challenging part of your business?
The manufacturing.
Yeah.
The parks they were a lot to get started and going, and we've got a pretty good formula, I think, worked out for them now, and we're pursuing a few more leases in 2025. But the manufacturing is just a constant challenge. It's like you don't have this machine that's just built up to keep running. It's every month is a new month with a new grind, and but it's also the most rewarding. And I think Luke said this too. Like he's usually based out of the parks, the head office here, but he likes his time at the manufacturing more. It's always a fun new challenge to overcome. I love it because it's usually designing or developing some new product, or chasing some new dream for some customer, which is really fun too. And yeah, I guess
you might be able to relate, Brad, probably going on a job site. Like it's just exciting and fun to be on a job site. You got all the office work you got to do, but like for me, our construction site is our manufacturing shop, and just going out, being on the floor with the team and helping pack orders, helping test orders, all that kind of stuff. So.
Well, here's where I'll give you credit. I mean, I as a builder, and keep in mind, this is something I do every day, right? We're building homes. We're seeing some of the most amazing product, latest and greatest. I mean, and you become numb in the sense that, for us, it's like orders placed, need the product. Is it delivered? We got to get it installed. Okay. We have bodies here. They're putting them in. And so it's just nuance of running the schedule. And it's not like you have a lot of time to sit there and look at a plumbing fixture and how's this manufactured, right? Or you're looking at the trampoline product, right? That's going in the trampoline barn. How's this manufactured? And where we've had opportunities to go tour, Kohler or Sub-Zero Wolf or a window, right? Window company, right? And you go see the manufacturer behind the scene. I mean, the amount of expertise and innovation and thought and safety and, product development. And it's just fascinating to me to see the American manufacturing. I mean, any manufacturing, but American manufacturing for sure, North American, Canadian. I mean, you guys do some incredible work. And so it's just to see that happen and realize how much work and thought goes into every little piece that goes into these builds. It just brings a lot more consideration, right, into, what we're doing and the product that's put out there. Because, for us as the general contractor, working with Crazy Ape, this is like one detail of a massive project, but the amount of thought and time that both of you are putting into this, like, it's invigorating, right? It's like, I don't know, like hearing you speak about how passionate you are, it's just, there's an energy there that, I think is often missed in what we do.
No, that's very true. And we really appreciated working with AFT because having a project manager is really worth mentioning. Like some of our clients, it can be a challenge when you're working just with a client and the client just wants it delivered and they're trying to figure out how to assemble it with their kid and stuff like that versus having a professional on the other end of the line that knows how to use a drill, knows how to drive a truck, knows how to drive a skid steer if needed to unload something. It makes a huge difference and it's so much easier. But yeah,
Justin was awesome.
Yeah,
Justin was at least he was the PM that we were working with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the AFT side for getting it set up. So yeah,
it didn't matter what went wrong. He was always pleasant and like positive, and that's an important thing too.
Yeah,
it's like stuff happens, but you find the best way through it, and so
it is for sure. It's tough. I mean, it is. That project is very challenging. There's a lot of components. There were a lot of things that would change, and so to keep your arms around all that, there's a lot. I mean, I believe you guys had both been down there, right?
I didn't get to go. I was actually looking at flying down, but I had another thing come up. But Armand made the trip down.
Yeah, Armand made it down. Okay. Yeah. So you've been on. I mean, you were on the grounds. You saw the full scope of everything going on there.
It was hot.
It was because it was summer. It's a little bit different than Canada in the summer.
Yeah.
No, it was incredible to see, and that was really, I think, helped drive more of our decision making after the fact too. Is we were lucky enough to get a tour of the property after we finished up there, and just to see all the division and the personal elements that had been incorporated into that build.
The attention to detail.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I started thinking like, wow, how can we bring that more into like the fun elements as well? Like I thought like it was so cool. For example, if they had even the branding irons from the ranch back in I think Spain. Like how cool would it have been to wrap the pads in leather and then brand it or something like that, or get that in there? I thought that'd have been really cool. Just I was thinking like of other options to bring that theming and that.
This is where I get worried because he gets going, but there is the details you could get lost in that build were just unfathomable. I know you were sharing them on the drive home when I called him, and it was just crazy. But
yeah, and then the trough that had been like rehoned out and made into a sink on the wall, like it was crazy. It was really cool. It was really cool that someone cared enough to actually want to build that vision and that put that personality into their house. I think that's so cool. It's a home. It's not just a house.
Yeah, it is. And I will give credit. I mean, it was interesting because, I mean, this kind of goes back to my manufacturing comment. You know, when I'm working with designers, there's an element of that, you know, we trust them entirely. We're trying to execute their vision. And case in point in Project Blow Your Mind, I mean, we had some troughs and sinks that were, shipped from Europe that are, very heavy, and we're figuring out how to install them. We had some barn doors, some prison doors that were in there that you probably saw. So a couple prison doors. And so there's this like history going into the home. But what's interesting is some of the artwork that the designer put in, and some of the, there were some special design elements that, again, rewind 3-4 years ago when this project started. The designer took some notes. They listened to the client on things that were personal. I'll give one little example. The client had kept keys from like every house they had rented or purchased, right, throughout their marriage and stuff. And so they took these and they built this like amazing display. And so there are these really heartfelt moments of things that were meaningful to them that they put throughout the home. And so there's just these touches, to your point, Armand, that it takes a house to home, and it really gives the satisfaction of what we do every day, right?
Yeah, and that's where it's really exciting, is just being part of that too. So
I'm sure for you guys, I mean, as painful. You mentioned COVID, how that affected your project in Vancouver. You mentioned, like, I'm sure day to day there's projects that don't go great. Maybe they're not profitable. You have losses here and there. I mean, that's just part of doing business. But, when the projects are successful and you see the client enjoying it, I mean, it has to just bring a tremendous amount of value to both of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's incredibly fulfilling. So
that closes the loop on it. So,
and I think you hit the nail on it too. It's like, regardless of whether the project's profitable or not, you get it done and you deliver. And I think that really matters, because that to me is what North American is just delivering the results.
So what keeps you both up at night?
New ideas.
Yeah, I forget what it was now, but I woke up at 2 a.m. I was like, oh, that's how I'm going to do that. You have those little moments, I guess, but it's usually, we found like there's in trampolines and also in crash pads and a lot of these things, there's been no development in 20, 30, 40, almost the lifespan of the product. It's like, since safety was a thing, like they put pads on a trampoline in the 90s, and then they put nets on in 2005, and that nothing else has changed. So it's really cool to go into some of these industries and look at some of these products, and like they haven't been thought about. They've just been doing the same thing because that's how it's been done for so long.
So people think of a trampoline as something with springs around it. We'll literally put up to 4 different types of springs on a trampoline to tune the feeling that you're getting when you're jumping on it. So like I'll put my kids to bed. They'll be asleep by 8:30, and I'll go out in the hot tub and I'll be pinging Armand messages until midnight, going like, "Hey, what about this? And what about this?" And that's kind of the both of us, just always, what can we do next? What if we adjusted this? And
crash padding is this is again just going down a rabbit hole. Crash padding is what we really dived into this last 6 months, and the dogs' beds were an early part of that. But just the way the foam makeup, like foam is not equal. Like a 12-inch brick of foam is gonna, same foam, if you make it 24 inches thick, the 24-inch thick pad is going to feel firmer. It's going to respond firmer than the 12-inch one would, or even than a 4-inch one would. So there's so much additional. You can get so much more performance and characteristics and dial things in and tailor them when you put a little bit more thought in and start thinking about how these things are working and looking at modern materials and methods of solving these problems.
So we came up with a foam system where it's stiff if you walk across it, and it's soft if you land on your head.
Hmm.
So it's going to prevent head injuries, but at the same time prevent ankle injuries. Something we see in Ninja Warrior courses, people land and their foot lands on the side, and then their body weight comes down and compounds that, and obviously results in an ankle injury. So if you have a stable surface that you land on, well, now your foot lands and it stays flat and it doesn't get off centered. So there's all kinds of, yeah, this is what keeps us up at night.
And then also ways of making things more serviceable, and because we've done parks now for 10 years, and kids just find a way to beat the hell out of everything. So every time we've done a new park,
Shocking, very shocking.
I've just gone on some new way of you want to get that pad to stay there and never move, but then it's like, well, eventually it's going to get damaged or worn out. I'm gonna have to replace it. So I've gone through different evolutions of our own equipment to make them both, again, very durable, but also when something goes wrong, it's very simple to maintain and replace and swap out. And I can do it with just shipping a little vinyl cover rolled up in a little box to one of our parks, and a guy there can easily install it rather than having a whole pad getting sent out, because the whole pads are usually a nightmare to ship. But it's just all these little nuanced things. And those are, I don't know. That's where I love diving into the details and coming up with something new.
So what's upcoming and exciting for you guys?
The trampoline rooms, honestly, we're really happy with how our last park turned out. That was our project this time last year. And
the world's largest trampoline.
Yeah, okay.
We're trying to find a social media star, an influencer that wants to build the world's largest trampoline at 200 feet. So
maybe they're listening to this. So
hopefully, we'd love to do even a brand that want to do it. We want someone else who's got the space and another megaphone. So it's not just us trying to promote our own big trampoline. We want to do it with a partner. So we'll see if we can find someone to do that. We got 2 more parks we're looking at doing next year internally on top of all the ones we're doing for everyone else.
Wow.
And hopefully some new engaging home builds. We got another one we're doing down in Florida. There's a lot on the go. So
it's incredible. What do you both do for fun?
My wife and I recently moved out.
Besides trampolines.
I think that is the gift. I need to probably spend some more time on a trampoline. It's been more in the office year, but my wife and I moved out to a ranch a year and a half ago. So we love hiking, a bunch of dogs, spending time out there traveling. So that's probably our main thing. Luke's got a bunch of kids.
I got young kids. I got an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So it's, right now I'm at the stage where I'm just keeping up with them. So luckily we've got a place like this at our own hometown where my daughter was here this morning kind of thing. So it's fun.
Social media too has been really fun. That's actually another thing we've jumped into this past 6 months, I think. And part of it was probably seeing how active you guys were sharing updates on Project Blow Your Mind.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool to see. And we were like, you know what, there's so much, it's so fun and sad. And I don't know, it feels great just sharing knowledge and talking about things and putting good things out there. And so we started doing that with our products too. And we have a little lowly podcast that's just starting out too. And so.
Well, I love seeing, Brad, the content you have with even your family and your kids coming out to the site and stuff like that, because I love doing that with my kids, bringing them out to a trampoline park when they're doing renovation or taking them to manufacturing. They love going there after hours with me, and they'll help sweep the floor, probably make more of a mess than they help with, but it's just getting them involved that I think is really important. So it's nice to see.
It is. I don't know if my project manager, Justin Argall, was too happy with me taking my kids by, because he had just had the trampoline park clean, and my kids, I think it was like an hour and they wouldn't leave. They had too much fun on your product. And I'm like, okay, guys, it's time to go. And they just had the time of life, and they have dirty footprints everywhere. It's just,
Yep.
So I get it clean. But it's funny. I just posted a video or some stories over the weekend. I was taking a client through one of our projects, and I'm like, they're my 2 youngest kids, because I have 6, right? My 2 youngest ones. And I'm like, hey, they're in like their church clothes and stuff. I'm like, no going in the dirt. And sure enough, like they're like sliding down the dirt head first. I'm like, okay, well, don't show mom how dirty your clothes are. But, it's just the fun part of having kids, right? And seeing, them enjoying it. For you guys, as you mentioned, that's really what gives you, that the passion for what you do. And so, and again, for the listeners, just to confirm, I mean, anyone that's looking at reaching out, of course, any customization of trampolines, to trampoline rooms, Ninja Warrior courses. And to your point, we talked about dog beds. You guys have the manufacturing, the sewing facility that, you can cater to them. So anything else we missed?
No, I think that's honestly it. Most of it starts with a phone call. We're a small team. Like, we have over 100 people on our park side. Crazy Apes, 10 people. So yeah, it's not hard to get a hold of us if anyone's ever got a question. And yeah, whether it's dog beds or we're doing one for an NHL team right now, they want a catch mat for an intermission game. They play with the kids on the ice or whatever it may be. So happy to help. So
A lot of great ideas start as a customer request. That InfiniTramp thing, it was bouncing around my head for a while, the concept of it. But it started off as a person had a backyard. They had a bit bigger of a space than our conventional 10 by 17 offering. And they're like, wow, could you do 10 by 20? And I thought, well, if we're going to do that, let's do 10 by 22. And then an influencer saw that project. We posted about it. And he's like, oh, I need a 40 footer. And so then from there, it was like, okay, well, now we're going to develop a modular system. And yeah, the longest part of the whole thing is 10 feet. And it can be 25 feet long or it can be 200 feet long. So it's
usually just a phone call. But yeah.
So how can customers reach out? Where can they find you?
Easiest, check out our website, crazyape.shop. And yeah, examples of our work and products. And yeah, or just give us a call. So
amazing. Well, I can't thank you both enough, Luke, Armand, for joining us, for the work you did for us on Project Blow Your Mind. You absolutely crushed it. Our clients love it. It's definitely one of the main features that people love. So appreciate you guys.
Oh, thanks for having us be a part of it. And thanks for having us on the podcast.
If you get value from the show, please support us by giving a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And I also have a favor to ask. We've had some incredible guests that come on and share their wisdom, their knowledge about their business. So if you have friends or family members that could benefit from those episodes, please share it with them, as well as any other business owners that you're networking with that could get value from the podcast or certain episodes. Please share those as well. Again, subscribe, make sure you're following. Any questions that you have, topics. We've had listeners reach out about certain guests that we should have on the show. Again, brad.l@aftconstruction.com. Email me for topics to address, guests that we should have on, and even if you think you'd be a great guest for the show. So again, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time.